Crushing COVID. We know what to do. Stay tuned on how we handled the first wave and the potential second wave. Good morning, Mark. Michael Bergio here at Morning Minutes, episode 337. COVID's not back to the hot topic, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, how does it going to affect property this time? Is it going to be the same as last time? Is it going to be better, worse? And being property people, let's talk property and let's talk COVID.
Yeah, so we're obviously in a far better position having already sort of been through it before, a lot better than we were in March. There's a lot of government systems set up and also people's expectation. Like March, sort of there was that fear of the unknown, how severe it could be. And we saw like the market basically stop for probably 2 weeks. And then a lot more information got out. And then we started people adapting. Wasn't it real estate agents adapting, buyers adapting with how they wanted to view properties? But overall, I think we experienced only a slowdown for maybe 2 weeks. And then it was like, Mark, I remember our initial conversation 6 months ago. We were like, all right, we're basically preparing not to do a deal for 6 months. And a month into it, we're like, guys, I think people are still calling. They're happy to do virtual tours. They're still looking to buy. A lot of people had already sold. They had to buy. It wasn't a choice. And as we were labeled an essential service, with obviously a lot of precautions, we were still able to operate. I know some agents just flat out closed for like 3 months, but we didn't. What did we do different, Mark? How did we keep operating safely?
Yeah, look, I think it seems to be hitting us a bit harder being a Northern Beaches agent. It seems like a bit. I know the conversation I had with you before off air, Michael, about I was saying it's pretty much just because it was sort of it's almost come in 3 waves. It's almost like there was the first wave, C1, which was all of Australia. Then it felt like there was C2, which was Melbourne, and then it feels like this is C3. And I feel like each time we're actually getting better at it, and we're better prepared for it. It's very, very interesting. That first time with property, we were really uninformed, uneducated, no processes behind it with C1, and now with COVID C3, I feel like, with that contact tracing, with being good citizens and what we have to do, it's actually getting we're much more structured in what we need to do. How that's going to affect property? Well, I reckon if C1 property paused and then pushed on, in C2 with Melbourne being affected, Sydney was still seemed to have just bopped along. I can't help but to think that for C3, COVID third wave, which we're going through now, I can't help but to think that we're going to be, if not the same or stronger than C1 or C2.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think for people, I think if we split it as well, you've got that residential market and the commercial market, and a lot of agents watching, a lot of people sort of in that residential market. And it was really, really resilient. And I think that came from the necessity, especially when you have already sold or you have bought, the wheels have to keep turning. Things don't stop. Like, that's going to be the key here. Christy says it really well, and we know what to expect. So it's almost like people just get back into formation. Yep, the mask, social distance. It's because people would have relaxed from last week to where it would have been April, May, June, even when you see Melbourne come out of the restrictions. So it's almost like the flip switches. back to formation. You know exactly what to do. I definitely feel for a lot of the restaurants and businesses where a lot of the restrictions were a lot of the heavy restrictions were just lifted last week, Mark, from 4 square meter rule to 2. So it's just like you flip the switch back to the 4 square meter rule. There was over 20,000 tests done over the weekend. They announced on Saturday, so probably more done yesterday. Well, 11 for people listening, 11 a.m. is the big announcement from Gladys. They announced 30 new cases. Yeah, 11 a.m. They announced 30 new cases yesterday. So at 11 a.m. today, we'll hear more. And you look at the.
But it does affect, another way it affects us as real estate is it's not just the sales prices of properties or the buying and selling activity, but it affects the rental market. And at the moment, the rental market, well, certainly in C1, COVID-1, we found that the rental market actually did suffer. And we found that it suffered in the way of rent. A lot of tenants just stopped paying stuff, stopped paying rent, stopped paying bills, started hoarding cash. We found that commercial tenants asked for a lot of rental relief from prospective landlords. Now, how that's going to affect us in C3 and particularly on the northern beaches, I think will be interesting. I think everyone will be meeting their commitments probably better than C1 because we're a bit more prepared for tenants. But you know how you said just then, Michael, you feel bad about some of these businesses that have just got on their feet. I think that emotion we can use for good, and I think that if we can actively try to support these businesses that we feel bad about in another way that's not necessarily the way that's allowed. So I'll give you an example. If you're going to be say that your favourite coffee shop down the road that's got very busy indoor and outdoor seating, you love them. They're great guys. They're a family business. Now they've just been slammed by COVID-3. They're in DY. They're absolutely slammed. How do you help those guys through this? And how do you help these local businesses through the pain? Are you going to go sit in the restaurant within 4 meters square to the restaurant? No. But if you're placing an order through Deliveroo, that helps them. If you're placing an order by telephone directly from them, and getting it delivered from them outside of Deliveroo, well, they're going to be 30% up on takings because that's what Deliveroo or Uber Eats charges. But another way is use cash. So if you can pay at the counter with these guys, it's a bit harder with contact, I guess, with COVID, and I don't know, cash may be not the right thing to do at the moment, passing, because it's, I don't know, wash your cash before you give it to people.
Wash your cash, but it's a great point, because that little stops third. Like, there are a lot of business will be sacrificed. So yes, it's more convenient to order through Deliveroo, but the phone call direct will save them 30%. So now more than ever, because I think the difference between C1, as you like to call it, Mark, and now is we're not necessarily going to have that government support that we did previously, but and the rental relief systems, as previously Mark will pop back on. And what I mean by that, because we had the unknown, it happened quite quickly, stimulus and force. I'm not sure if you caught it, Mark, but what I was basically saying, it's now more than ever compared to C1, C2, we have to find ways to keep the wheel turning for these businesses and people, because we're not necessarily going to have the stimulus we had or the relief we had. Some people just closed doors and were like, the government will help us. The plague is here, basically. And the government did in a large, and to a lot of people it did. But now I don't believe we're going to have that rental relief or stimulus. So instead of just shutting your doors, not doing anything, the wheel's got to keep turning. Safely, of course, using real precautions.
We've had 6 months in training. We've had 6 or 9 months in training on this now. So There's been 9 months of training on how to act in C1, how to act in C2 when Melbourne got hit, how to act in C3, what we're doing. Now we know all the triggers we can pull. And feeling bad for a business is a great emotion, a local business, but what are you actually going to do to help that business in that local area to survive? Absolutely critical thinking for individuals in your local area. And again, I'll say it again, feeling bad is great, but how the hell can I support this business through that time so they survive on the other end? And I'm particularly acutely focusing on the Northern Beaches with that question. And anyone in Sydney who's feeling bad about the Northern Beaches going through what it's gone through and going to be going through, if you can support those businesses by putting an order in from a, you may find that you can order something from an online via the beaches rather than another area. Well, you do that, or if you can, like we just said, Uber Eats from that business rather than sitting in there eating your meal. There's lots of different ways. But back to property, what's your prediction on it?
Well, I think more than ever, real estate agents, they have to keep operating and keep leasing properties, because put it this way, think of it as someone who has a restaurant, they've lost their source of income, but they have a property and that business can't trade at all. But then the agents are just putting their hands up going, I'm being safe COVID, and not showing the property. I think if we can't help directly with the businesses, a lot of people's incomes are their rental properties. So I think we've just got to forge forward. And the difference is between C1 and now is that unknown's not there. So we know how to get into formation straight away, start and keep the wheels turning. I think, well, Christmas, it's still busy. People still want to do stuff. So I think depending how it goes, and the next couple of days are vital. Like, we're at 68 cases, Northern Beaches. That could easily go to 100 tomorrow and 200 by Tuesday. And then you're in even further lockdown. Hopefully today's only a little bit extra and they would have contained it. But we saw Melbourne, it went from 100 to 500 cases like within a week. So I think just keep answering the phone. It's crazy.
It's pretty sobering, isn't it? It's quite sobering when you consider that these cases are primarily on the Northern Beaches. That's scary, because we were looking at all these numbers, 12, 8, 22. That was for the whole of Victoria. This is pretty much just for this one little hotspot, one little area.
Yeah. Let me bring up COVID. Show you how quick it is.
It's really, why you bring that up, it's interesting, guys, that when it comes to property, we've got to be really respectful. So anyone who's inspecting a rental property or inspecting a sales property or vice versa, we've just got to be super, super respectful. If you do it, only if it's essential, that you need it. So, you're selling only if you really need to sell, and you're buying if you only really need to buy. And you're on a timeline where you've got an approval in place at a certain time, or you've got to move because your landlord's moving in and it's a rental property. So it's really only essential business we want to be doing. And I think it's really only one-on-one. We don't want to be inside the apartment. We want to be wearing gloves. We don't want to be touching anyone's belongings inside or cupboard doors or anything like that inside the apartment. We want to be using sanitizer. It's mandatory to have these masks on in and out of workplaces now in the Northern Beaches. So I think we've just got to be super, super respectful, super careful, and still making sure, like you said, we're getting people in and out of homes that need to get in and out of homes. But it's a public responsibility as much as a real estate agent's responsibility. Just like when you go into a cafe, when they ask you to sanitize, or when they ask you to leave your details, you do it accurately.
Exactly right. Like, looking back at Victoria, it went from basically 70 cases to 160 to 250 to 340 within 2 weeks. So 70 to 160 to 250 within 7 days. So do everything. It's one of those things we know you basically don't be relaxed initially. So do what you can, but you can do a lot of things safely. Isn't that right, Mark? As you said, we know what to do. Keep forge forward. Listings are generally lower this time of year. We saw a lot of people got some great buys in April. Let's face it. So people looking back, I think there's going to be those people going, well, April was a great time to buy. We've seen the market surge in the last 3 months. If this slows it down for a month, it could be a great time to buy, especially if you really need to buy. So I think it's very resilient, but it is heavily localized now. It's in our backyard.
And you know what? Just use this time to enjoy your family. You know, like it's Christmas. It is Christmas. It is probably if there's 2 weeks of a year where it actually where less business is actually done, it's these 2 weeks of the year. So just optimize and enjoy your family and small gatherings, friends in this period.
Well, that's exactly right. A lot of people are thinking, well, this has ruined Christmas. But when you think of it, is it really the worst thing if you're locked down with your family? Like at this time of year as well. So look at the positives. Obviously, if you can't get to your family, yeah, that sucks. But I don't think we're there yet with restrictions. So if you can, get there and spend Chrissy. Because when's Christmas? Wednesday. Is it?
Friday.
Friday. Yeah.
We've got a 4-day week this week, and yeah.
Alrighty. I think that's it. Stay safe and keep watching the COVID stuff. The tracker and New South Wales Health with location.
Yes. Stay honest, guys. Support your local business as much as you can. And if you can't do it by patronage, see which ways you can do it, like with these cafes and these businesses in the area, shopping and stuff like that, and sanitize.
Exactly right. Alrighty. See you, Mark. Speak soon, everyone.
See you, buddy.
Bye.